10 years. Is there a deadline in Turkey's interest in joining the EU? And to my dear friend Zatev, is the EU having any deadline to get Turkey into the EU until a certain process of time? Or is it, as they say, perennial and unlimited? I thank you.
Thank you, Ambassadors. Other raised hands? I will not see at this moment. The Ambassador of Sudan. Next to the Ambassador of Pakistan.
Thank you so much, Sir Pasi. I'm so happy to be here as always, listening to these very interesting, discussions. And I would like also to thank Ambassador of Turkey and the club, the Europa Club, for holding this very interesting discussion. In fact, my point maybe is going to be a bit intriguing, maybe a sensitive point. Nevertheless, I will say it. I remember the days when I was Director of Europe in my own ministry, dealing specifically also with the holder of Turkey, which in my own country is a very important country with excellent historical relations. And I have always been interested in EU-Turkey relations. And I definitely share the views as expressed by Ambassador Farouk and the other colleagues. You mentioned, Ambassador, too poor, too large, and too Muslim. Maybe I would like to reflect on the issue of the too Muslim. At least I'm reflecting a point from our own region in the Middle East and North Africa. Most of our countries have very special relationship with Turkey. And we always look at this relationship vis-a-vis Turkey's interest in joining the EU. And oftentimes we read and we hear and we see assessment or analysis about the fact that the EU will never accept Turkey simply because of the issue of being Muslim, though we all know that Turkey is a secular state. So and we wonder, there isn't that much emphasis on this specific point, though it is part of the 3 points you mentioned, but in our part of the world, we don't see a lot of emphasis on this particular point, though most analyses are saying that this is the main reason why the EU is not going to accept Turkey. I'm just saying this by way of, listening to your point of view. It is very important to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Other raised hands? I will not see in the hall, so let's proceed to our panelists. Professor.
Thank you. I can maybe answer your question, Mr. Chairman, about what I would like to change in Turkey and the European Union. In the European Union, I think what I would like to change would be their perspective, the overall perspective, especially in countries like France and Germany regarding Turkey. Usually, I think, based on also the issues that Ambassador Kaymakçı also noted, that they think that the EU actually does not really have the capacity to integrate Turkey. Turkey is a very difficult candidate with multiple problems. It is large, it is culturally different, etc. So they want to, delay the Turkey issue as much as possible by finding alternative ways of dealing with Turkey. But I think what I would like to change would be the mentality that they should think outside the box, that Turkey can be integrated, and if Europe actually wants to continue to matter in a globalizing world, in a world where the balances are changing and there are new emerging powers, the role of the West is changing, etc., that the best way for the European Union, I think, to integrate with these changing times is to have this vision that yes, the EU can integrate Turkey, and yes, Turkey can be a member of the European Union. It's not an impossible dream. That would be what I would like the EU to change in its approach. And in Turkey's case, I think what I would like to tell, for example, decision makers would be that stop complaining about the EU, do it. I mean, try to become a candidate country that is delivering reforms, despite all the obstacles that the European Union is actually providing in terms of Turkey's integration. Do the reforms because it is for the benefit of Turkey. It's not just to become a member of the European Union, but these reforms are needed for our own development, modernization. So do these reforms and despite all the obstacles, try to be a candidate country that is delivering on its promise of accession to the European Union. That would be all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Professor. Ambassador?
I understand that the next one would be, well, starting with the customs union. Yes, certain leaders in the EU argue that the customs union modernization could be an alternative to the Turkish membership in the EU. Bulgaria doesn't see it like that, and the European Commission doesn't see it like that. We have an impact analysis linked to the directive with the proposed mandate for the Commission to start negotiations. All the package, the whole package of documents is under negotiations under the Trade Committee within the Council formation. But 145 billion mutual trade. 150 even, as the ambassador corrects me. So I believe that it's not about membership, it's about actually now, at this very moment, what we can win mutually from this customs union modernization. Yes, this is a new type of customs treaties, like the treaties that we are trying to negotiate with with Japan and Australia. But also we are stepping on court decisions vis-à-vis a treaty with Singapore. They integrate new areas of cooperation, these new agreements. Regrettably, Bulgaria was very ambitious about the customs union modernization, unfortunately, and we were thinking that the negotiations would be concluded in the Trade Committee and enter the political debate in Kuala. Unfortunately, or regrettably, there are member states that block the discussions for political reasons, and Cyprus is not the only one. Concerns are raised within the EU about internal political developments in Turkey, and we need to be aware of this, and we need to respond to it. Whether the UK-EU treaty will be a new type of treaty to look for when defining future customs unions, I don't know. Let's see first how the situation will develop with the Brexit talks by October, and then after October how the situation will develop with the specific shape of the new trade agreement with the UK. But as a presidency, I can say only one thing: it's up to the UK to say what they want, and then we will negotiate it according to the European rules, and they know European rules. What has to change, going back to Turkey, what has to change? A lot of things have to change. And these things have to come, judging from our own perspective, from the perspective of Bulgaria and our experience. This is about deliverables, and this is about showing specific results, so all the concerns that anyone would tell you that such concerns exist. We had very tough negotiations. We had to pay very significant prices, including internal politics, when we negotiated our membership. And I believe that the rules of the game haven't changed so much. So I believe that Turkey will also have to develop further and to do the reforms like Cijen said. And yes, the EU has to change as well. The Commission, as Mrs. Latvev very rightly said so, proposed changes according to the Lisbon Treaty provisions. But leaders in their discussion in Brussels in February didn't respond positively to that. The Commission also wants the Union to start preparation, to build absorption capacity for new members. Member states are not eager to see the linkage between the two things. So I would say that we need to work both ways, in Turkey and in the European Union. Bulgaria is there to help. I, as
said on several occasions we are ready for consultations on new matters, to share our own experience and to see where we can be particularly help, assistance, so that you are as prepared as possible. And is there a deadline? Actually, there is no deadline for anyone, not even for the Western Balkans and the front runners from the Western Balkans. To be very frank, I had to lead a meeting in Brussels 2 weeks ago, and many members said no deadlines for anyone. And we have really a tough job as a presidency to push forward. But anyway, we will continue doing our best and hope also for the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. And Ambassador Kamucha.
Thank you. I think there are some questions for me. So, Commission Council balance, Commission is still a great European actor, and, we are working very closely with the Commission. But in the Council, of course, you have 28 nations. Sometimes, some of the member states do not mind abusing their membership for the narrow-minded interest in the short run and against the general interest of the EU. Ambassador, you asked me 2 questions. One is about upgrade of customs union. Is it an alternative to Turkish membership? No. Actually, the initial customs union of 1996 was described for us, actually for the EU as well, which is enshrined in the association agreement. After the completion of the customs union, Turkey would join the EU. So for us, customs union was the final phase of, reaching the membership. This is why we accepted the customs union, in an unbalanced way, because within the customs union, basically, the EU is the dominant side, and the EU is taking the decisions, and you have to implement it well. We said, well, within a few years we will join the EU, so it's not a big deal. The customs union as it is now, not too bad. It helps us. It helps the EU more unfairly, but it's okay. We can tolerate that because we will join the club, and this is why we accepted this imbalance within the customs union. So what are these imbalances? It was mentioned. One is, we are not in the decision-making mechanism, entirely. Secondly, the customs union, EU can have free trade agreements with Mexico, and Mexico can export to EU, and then we cannot reject that product. But when we try to export to Mexico, Mexico says, sorry, we have no agreement with you. But we are part of the customs union. The third issue is the transport. The products which are subject to customs union cannot be transported freely. Some countries are imposing taxes or levies, and then, but this is a limited customs union, which includes industrial group products as well as processed agricultural products. So what we want by the customs union update and modernization, we want also customs union to be extended to services, to agriculture, to public procurement, to different areas, investment. So I think this is a win-win case, and the customs union is not at all an alternative, but it helps Turkey to get closer to the membership. And actually, Turkey is already a member of the European Union commercially. We are implementing the EU acquis in terms of trade, competition, so we are in it. Brexit, is this a model for Turkey? No. Brexit, is not a model because we want to join and they want to leave. And I remember an anecdote in London. Turkish Prime Minister was meeting the British Prime Minister, and the British Prime Minister said to Turkish Prime Minister, "Sir, either of us is doing something terribly wrong, but I don't know which one. You want to join and we want to leave." So I think the history tells us which one is doing the terrible mistake. You know, I was invited to London to talk about, you know, the Brexit model and Turkey, and I actually, you know, made a small list. So I said, ultra sovereignty, non-EU member UK can get 100, if such a thing is possible. I think there is no more, you know, full sovereignty for any country in the world. We are all interdependent. There is no such a thing. So, since there is no 100 for the UK, the best would be 90. 90 is membership in the EU. So you are in the club, you contribute, and you take advantage of the club, and that's 90. Okay, if you don't like a membership, then you can have a single market, and I would give 75 for single market. Then, if you still think about your so-called sovereignty, then you can go to customs union, which, you know, you can still keep some sort of sovereignty, but then you can get only 60. So if you really insist on your so-called full sovereignty, you can have a free trade, and that would give you 60. And these are the choices of any country leaving or trying to join the EU. I mean, this is what it is. Again, for us, we have already some sort of strategic, special, privileged relation with the EU. Turkey is the only country which is already an associate member of the EU since 1963 with the association agreement. We have many organizations such as Association Council, Association Committee, Joint Parliamentary Committee. Now we have these high-level dialogues and the EU summit. So what more special and privileged relation we can have? There is no such a thing. And Brits, they will say it, but it doesn't exist. So for us, membership is the only opportunity. And why do we insist on this? Because we have no luxury of not being in the EU since we are in Europe. If Turkey had been Mexico or, I don't know, Costa Rica, that's okay, we can understand. But we are politically, historically, culturally, economically, commercially bound by Europe. We are part of Europe, and this is why we have to be in the EU. So this fact will never ever change, and I don't think there will be any deadline or anything. The question is better communication and bring Turkey to the membership level, and the rest will come. What should change in Turkey and in the EU? Of course, Turkey, you know, should go back to its reform process and should normalize itself. And as I mentioned, 15th of July coup attempted a trauma, and this is why we had the state of emergency, many dismissals and many detentions. It happens in difficult times, but this is not a period that we want to keep ever. We want to stay in, and we want to have a normal and progressing, reforming Turkey soon. And of course, Çiğdem mentioned, you know, the mentality of Turkey, in which way it should go. I think that's the right approach. But from the EU side, we want only clear perspective. Nothing else. You know, like what you do now to the Western Balkans. You know, 2025 is mentioned. It might happen, it may not happen, but never mentioned for Turkey. So what we want, Turkey can become a member of the EU when and if Turkey meets membership criteria. That's what we want to hear, full stop. And if Turkey doesn't meet the criteria right now, you can tell us, we don't mind. But we have to keep the perspective open. If there is no clear perspective, it creates unclear credibility dilemma in the relations. It's neither good for the EU nor for Turkey. And veto rights, unanimity thing, I think, you know, we need to do something for this, because otherwise I don't see the future for Europe. If this veto right is, you know, imagine that Turkey today meets full membership criteria, and it's only Austria is blocking it. So what are we going to do? we can just say sorry, but Austria is blocking and then membership will not happen. So what will happen? This is not the right approach, and Austria should explain why they are against, while at least the other more than 20 countries are still in favor of Turkey being member of the EU when Turkey meets membership criteria. So there we have to find some sort of measure. No country can block for its narrow-minded national interest, and I don't think that this is also in the interest of Austria to block Turkish accession process. Deadline I mentioned. There is no deadline. Religion, this would never happen. I'm not that, pessimistic, I would say, because, in 1950s, 60s, actually 1959, when Turkey decided to apply to join the EEC, European Economic Community, we were given red carpet treatment. And the first president of the European Commission described, how European Turkey is and how a Muslim population, secular Turkey, will be an asset within the EU. The problem is now we have populism, we have far right, and this is a serious problem for all of us, and we have to tackle. I think more communication, more talk will help. And already there are, I think, at least 20 million Muslims who are living within the EU countries. So we have to respect, everyone's beliefs, and Turkey's, policy is very clear, and also with the accession of the Balkan states, I'm not saying before Turkey, it might happen later or at the same time. So there will be some more Muslim citizens of the EU, and I think this should happen, because this is why I say the Turkish accession to the EU is unique. This is why it is more complicated and more challenged, because it will make, I think, a real compromise to our history, to our, prejudices. And this is very important. This is why it takes too long. But we would never give the hope, and we know that this will happen. By the way, I heard that this Central Military Club was a place where the founder of Turkey, Atatürk, came for a reception in a Yeniçeri dress. So I am honored to be in such a nice place. Thank you for organizing this event here. Maybe one word on the 2 Greek soldiers, since it was mentioned, and also on Afrin. We should leave this to the court. And it was really unnecessary to politicize it too much. And the more it is politicized, the more, things get complicated. So leave it to the court, and the Turkish court will decide. On Syria, Afrin, EU has worries about the Turkish olive branch operation in Afrin, but this is, I think first, the EU should be worried about European borders with Syria, Iraq, and Iran. If there's a problem there, this is Europe's border at stake. It's NATO's border at stake. So Turkey is not only protecting itself from PYD, YPG attacks, but also it's protecting NATO's and Europe's borders there. And unfortunately, Afrin has been a ground for PYD, YPG terrorist organization, which is a branch of PKK in Syria. And our American allies didn't mind supporting such a terrorist organization to use against another terrorist organization. And this is wrong, and I know that this is wrong. It didn't work in Iraq, that I saw for 6 years. And it will not work in Syria. And we have to intervene, so our intention is self-defense and to make Turkey's and Europe's border secure, but also as soon as this area is cleared from terrorist organization, some of the Afrin people who are in Turkey right now will go back. For the first operation, for example, Euphrates Shield operation. Right now, 170,000 Syrians who were in Turkey went back to their homes. With the Afrin operation, the number of returnees right now is around 9,000. So it is also helping people to go back to their home. And we have no eye on any country's land or water or airspace. This is also an answer to some great issues that was mentioned by our Commission friend. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now, as a rule, the head artillery of the European Commission.
Well, I was in the infantry, not in the artillery, and there's this conflict in the used to be.
Heavyweight.
In any case, I couldn't agree more with everything that has been said so far. I fully agree with what Professor Chilen said, that what we need is a change of the mentality on both sides. I agree with this. There are still quite a few stereotypes on both sides, and we need to put every effort to overcome this. I want to reassure our Turkish friends that within the EU, perhaps their strongest advocate this is Bulgaria, and it has been proven by its actions, especially in the terms of the Bulgarian presidency. What is important is to keep the communication and open channels, because everybody mentioned this, that we need each other. And we need each other not only to go to develop for the best of our citizens, but also to protect against these global challenges that are ahead of us. And through this dialogue, we should find, I'm sure we should find the best possible ways to overcome the challenges that are still dividing us, building on what is uniting us. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador. And I would like to address the concerns of Ambassador Ilham of Sudan. I'm not sure whether it is the fact that Turkey is an Islamic country which affects the decision making within the European Union. For example, a similar question has never been raised about Albania, about Kosovo, about Bosnia. No one cares that Bosnia is Muslim, but there are other things to fix, or Kosovo. Bulgaria also has 10 or 12% Muslim population. This has never been an issue in our negotiations with the European Union, never ever. What is, as far as I see, the concern within Europe, this is the level of influence of religion in the government and in the society. And for example, this would apply to other religions as well, not only to the Islamic religion. If, for example, tomorrow the Vatican decides to apply for membership in the European Union, I'm sure there will be some concerns. It will not be anonymously applauded. And also to reflect what Ambassador Georgieva said, that each country has to pay a high price for the membership in the club. Because I had the privilege to sign both agreements of Bulgaria with NATO and the European Union, we had, for the negotiations with NATO, we had one price which for me was not heavy, but for the society and politically it was a price. We had to cut the SS-23 missiles, which were staying here in Sofia as a residual from the Warsaw Pact, and their only mission was to attack Istanbul, if necessary. So this was a precondition, but you know that populism always says, well, the might of the Bulgarian army, we need these important weapons. Well, we gave up, and things were facilitated. And we had also to pay price for the membership in the European Union. This was more tricky. We had to give up 2 power plants, nuclear power plants, because they were not, for one reason or another, they were not acceptable for the club. So we had to pay, and at that time, do you know what was the country to which I was envying? It was Slovakia. Why? Because Slovakia didn't have to get rid of SS-23. Slovakia did not have internal nuclear power plant, and the Bulgarians love nuclear energy, to cut the nuclear power plant. The Slovakians had only one request: Mečiar not to be elected for president. And I was so sorry that we didn't have such thing like Mečiar in Bulgaria. But this is the nature of the negotiations. I'm very pleased to invite the mastermind of today's event. This is Pastor Hasan Ulusoy, to say a couple of words to conclude the event.
Well, thank you, Minister Pasir, and thank you all these distinguished panelists. I was just going to make a general observation. I tried to mention the role of Bulgaria in those challenging times vis-à-vis Turkey-EU relations, but also Bulgaria has taken over this presidency during the very challenging time for the EU itself, not to mention Brexit and others. And the Bulgaria is doing a great job. I'm really feeling privileged to be here, because seeing all these events myself in person and admire their works to answer all these difficult questions during this presidency. And between these, as Madam Georgieva mentioned, how they hard worked for the Turkish-EU summit, given the fact that the EU was really insisting on the concept of Western Balkans and excluding Turkey from this issue. And I'm sure I remain confident that even after the EU presidency, Bulgaria will continue to support our bid for the membership, despite the forthcoming EU president. But I'm sure that we will be having good cooperation in this beautiful country, and also notwithstanding with these artificial geographical groupings such as Western Balkans, I'm sure one day all Balkan countries, including Turkey, will dance together the great dance of Balkan Horon, shoulder by shoulder, perhaps here or in other Balkan countries. With these thoughts in mind, thank you very much for all those joining us today.
Inshallah.